So today's topic is the central nervous system. Please keep quiet, all of you. So today we'll be starting with the central nervous system, and as we all know, the central nervous system is composed of the brain and the spinal cord, and spinal cord is divided into cervical, thoracic, lumbar, sacral and coccygeal regions. So the covering is known as the meninges, and the meninges there are three meninges: the dura mater, the arachnoid mater and the pia mater. So we know about the three meninges, and there are three spaces. One is epidural space, then the subdural space and subarachnoid space. So coming to the meninges, they are divided into pachymeninges and leptomeninges. Okay, I don't know. इसका पॉइंटर का कैसे है? इसको बुलाना. चल, इसका रेड मार्क कैसे होगा? इसमें सिर्फ फॉरवर्ड और बैकवर्ड ही है, पॉइंटर नहीं है. बस आगे पीछे का ही है क्या? इसमें फॉरवर्ड बैकवर्ड ही है क्या? पॉइंटर नहीं है रेड? हाँ. अच्छा, ये वाला. Okay, so this is the representation from the skull. So we have the skin and the bone, and in between obviously we have the periosteum. Below the periosteum is the bone, and below the bone is the dura mater. So the pachymeninges is the outer layer of meninges, and it is also known as dura mater, and it is composed of the lining of the bone, which is the periosteum, which is with the dural meningeal layer. So the dural meningeal layer and the periosteum together, they are known as the pachymeninges, and the leptomeninges is the inner layer of the meninges and the pia mater. Arachnoid and the pia, the inner layer of the meninges, are known as the leptomeninges. And the three main spaces between the layers of the meninges are the epidural space. So the epidural space is the space between the skull and the dura in the brain, and between the vertebral column and the dura mater in the spinal cord. So it is outside the dura, that is why it is known as epidural. Subdural means below the dura. So it is a potential space. Potential means that normally it is not a space, but it can open up. So it is a potential space between the dura mater and the arachnoid mater that surrounds the brain and the spinal cord. It is normally not a space, but it can open up if there is trauma to the brain, such as in a condition known as subdural hematoma, and it contains a thin layer of fluid in between. The subarachnoid space is below the arachnoid. It is a CSF filled space, and it is between the arachnoid and the pia mater of the brain and the spinal cord. And this is the most common site of pathology for infections, including infections, benign congenital lesions and even malignancy. So coming to meningitis. So as we can understand from the name itself, something ending with itis in pathology is inflammatory mostly. So meningitis means inflammation of the meninges. So meningitis, to define, is an inflammatory process of the leptomeninges and the CSF within the subarachnoid space, and it is usually caused by infection. So leptomeninges is the inner layer. The CSF is mainly in the subarachnoid space, so that is why we are saying infection of the CSF in the subarachnoid space. Meningoencephalitis. This is inflammation of the meninges and the brain parenchyma. So when the infection is going beyond the meninges and is also associating itself, the infection is spreading to the brain parenchyma, and brain parenchyma is also infected, then the condition is known as meningoencephalitis. The most common causes are infections, but this reaction can also occur in conditions like chemical meningitis. That means in response to non-bacterial irritants introduced into the subarachnoid space or in systemic autoimmune diseases. So based on the etiology and the clinical evolution of illness, infectious meningitis is broadly classified into acute pyogenic, aseptic and chronic. So acute pyogenic, it is usually bacterial, as we understand from the word pyogenic. Pyo means pus. So pyogenic is bacterial. Aseptic, usually acute or subacute viral, and chronic, which is most commonly tuberculous, spirochetal or cryptococcal. Each type is accompanied by characteristic changes in the CSF. So when the lumbar puncture is done and the CSF analysis is done, we can to some extent give a clue to the clinician that this is probably bacterial or tubercular or whatever the reason is. Acute pyogenic or bacterial meningitis. Distinctive microorganisms, they cause acute pyogenic meningitis in various age groups. Like in neonates, most common organisms are E. coli and group B streptococci. In elderly, Streptococcus pneumoniae and Listeria. And in adolescents and young adults, Neisseria. An introduction of immunizations against H. influenzae has markedly reduced the incidence of this infection in the developed world, especially in the infants who were initially at increased risk. So coming to the morphology, in acute meningitis, what will happen? There will be a purulent exudate over the leptomeninges, which you can even see grossly. A glistening silvery scale is seen on the surface of the brain. The meningeal vessels are engorged and they stand out prominently. H. influenzae meningitis, the location is mostly basal. So to some extent you can understand if the location is basal, then maybe it can be infected because of H. influenzae. And in pneumococcal meningitis, often it is densest over the cerebral convexities near the sagittal sinus. On microscopy, since we are calling it pyogenic and since it is bacterial, pyo is pus. So the inflammatory cell which will be there is a neutrophil. Acute inflammatory cells are neutrophils. So that is why what we are expecting here is, we are expecting neutrophils to be present, and neutrophils, they fill the subarachnoid space in severely affected areas and are found predominantly around the leptomeningeal blood vessels in less severe cases. So when the infection is less severe, it is only found around the leptomeningeal blood vessels. And in untreated cases, the gram stain which will reveal the number of the content of the bacteria or the type of bacteria. So, but the case has to be untreated. If you have already treated or the case is partially treated, suppose you have given antibiotics, then maybe the organism may not reveal itself on staining or culture. In fulminant meningitis, what is happening is, the inflammatory cells which were actually initially around the blood vessels, now they are crossing even the wall of the blood vessels. So they are infiltrating the wall of the meningeal vessels and they may extend focally into the surface of the brain. So as the infection is increasing, it is slowly penetrating the vessel wall and the brain parenchyma, and the condition is known as cerebritis. Acute aseptic viral meningitis. We are saying aseptic means no infection. So if no infection, we call it viral. Aseptic meningitis is a clinical term used for the absence of organisms on bacterial culture, and the patient is presenting with the signs of meningitis, meningeal irritation, there is fever, there is alterations of subconsciousness of relatively acute onset. The disease is generally of viral etiology. The clinical cause is less fulminant than the pyogenic one, and on CSF what you find is lymphocytic pleocytosis. So in pyogenic the cell was neutrophil, here the cell is lymphocyte. Protein elevation is only moderate and glucose content is nearly always normal. Chronic bacterial meningoencephalitis. So now the infection has increased, it is involving the brain parenchyma also. Since it is chronic, so obviously we can expect the infection to go a little further than it was in the acute cases. So chronic bacterial infection of the meninges and the brain is caused by Mycobacterium tuberculosis, Treponema pallidum and Borrelia species. So in our setup, the most common is tuberculosis. So tuberculosis of the CNS may be a part of active disease anywhere else in the body, or it can appear in isolation following the seeding from silent lesions elsewhere, usually the lung. So what it means is that maybe the patient is having tuberculosis somewhere else in the body and now it has affected the brain. That is one thing. Another thing may be that the primary infection was silent and was not diagnosed, and when the patient was diagnosed, it was only in the CNS. So it may involve the meninges or it may involve the brain. Coming to the morphology, the most common pattern of tuberculous involvement is diffuse meningoencephalitis. The subarachnoid space, what will it contain in tuberculous one? Gelatinous or a fibrinous exudate. So when you get a history of a patient in your exam, that a patient has such a morphology, gelatinous or fibrinous exudate, characteristically involving the subarachnoid space or the base of the brain, effacing the cisterns and encasing the cranial nerve, then there may be and also there may be discrete white areas of inflammation scattered over the leptomeninges. So in such a history, you can expect the causative agent to be tubercular. On microscopy, there is a mixed inflammatory infiltrate, but predominantly there are lymphocytes, plasma cells and macrophages, which means these are the chronic inflammatory cells. Florid cases show well-formed granulomas. Florid cases show well-formed granulomas with caseous necrosis and giant cells. So the morphology is similar to that of a tubercular lesion anywhere else in the body. Clinical features. Patients with tubercular meningitis usually have headache, malaise, mental confusion and vomiting. The CSF typically shows pleocytosis made up of mononuclear cells or a mixture of neutrophils and mononuclear cells, but predominantly they will be mononuclear cells. An elevated protein concentration, that means there is a striking protein concentration increase, and moderately reduced or normal glucose will be there. So this is, ये क्या हुआ? अरे एक टेबल थी. Anyways, so this is the comparison of the three. The acute bacterial meningitis, the glucose will be low, protein will be high, and the cells are often more than 300 per mm³. Acute viral meningitis, the glucose is normal, the proteins are normal to high, and the cells are mostly mononuclear, less than 300 per mm³. In tubercular meningitis, the glucose is low, the protein is high, and the pleocytosis, the cells are mixed, can be lymphocytes, but few neutrophils may be found, but lymphocytes will dominate the picture, but the count is mostly less than 300 per mm³. In fungal meningitis, glucose is again low, protein is high, and cell count is again less than 300 mm³. Malignant meningitis, here the meningitis is occurring because of neoplasm or because of cancer. In this also the glucose is low, protein is high, and the cells are mostly mononuclear. One thing here is, क्या हो रहा है? दो slides कहाँ गई? Anyways, so as far as tuberculosis is concerned, tubercular lesion, sometimes when it affects the brain parenchyma, it is known as tuberculoma. So when it is in the form of tuberculoma, it occupies the space within the brain. In that case, it has to be differentiated from brain tumors. So it is only by the biopsy that you can finally diagnose that this space occupying lesion in the brain parenchyma was tubercular or it is because of any malignancy. So both of them are differential diagnosis. Any space occupying lesion in the brain has to be ruled out for tuberculosis before reporting it as malignant or tumor or cancerous. So that's all in this today. मतलब नहीं है यहाँ पे. इसको बुलाना लड़के को बंद करेगा.